We are here for another exciting and fun episode of Visibility Era, the podcast. We're here today with Michelle. Hey, Michelle, welcome to the show. How are
Oh
you?
my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're really excited. So we met like a month ago, Connecticut. I drove up from New Jersey, brought the husband along for the ride, and you were one of the speakers. And I just remember listening to you speak, and I was like, it's like Eat, Pray, Love, like her story and her journey. I mean, you literally referenced it as you were talking as well. But I was just really excited to not only hear your story, but get to meet you afterwards, hear everything that you're up to. And obviously, there's lots of synergy
Yes.
between what all of us are doing. So, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit of that story, the background, and what you're up to now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, again, I'm so excited to be here. So, I'm Michelle. I'm the founder of Soul Camp Creative. We're a full service brand strategy design development agency working kind of specifically in the transformational space. So, all of our clients are in the business of doing good in some way or another. We work with a lot of authors, a lot of teachers, thought leaders, experts, but also a lot of just mission oriented brands and products. But the story leading up to that is what I will tell. So, in 2011, I was in corporate America. I worked in global brand development for Big Pharma. I was doing branding and messaging and positioning for insulin for Novo Nordisk. Thank God for insulin, saves lives. Not was not my dream of my life to be, branding insulin. But it's all I knew. I didn't know anyone who was an entrepreneur or living their dream. Like that wasn't even in my vocabulary. It was you go to work, you make as much money as possible, and you drink after work and you get drunk on the weekends and you live for the 3-day weekends. And that's truly all I knew. So I was a rising star in big pharma. I did really, really well, really, really young. I bought an apartment, a very small apartment, 300 square feet with a Murphy bed, but still an apartment on the Upper West Side. And I lived there with my boyfriend, investment banker. Like I said in the speech, everything from the outside was like, wow, she owns an apartment. She's only in her late 20s. She's with this guy. Everything's amazing, but everything was not amazing. I was just drinking so much. I was bulimic at the time. I was addicted to Adderall. It was, from the outside in, everything looked really, really pretty. From the inside out, everything was miserable, truly, including the relationship. So when Kevin, that was his name, that is his name, but and was, when he moved out of our apartment, we lived there together. I went away just because I didn't want to be there when the moving van came in, and I went to the spiritual retreat center called Omega in Rhinebeck, New York. Ironically, I just taught there a few weeks ago. But I went there for just to get out of New York City while, he was packing his things. And I went to this gathering retreat called Intensati. And it was a gathering of amazing women who were living their dream, who were, working out of Starbucks and had their own companies and were writing books and were leading movements. And for the first time in my whole life, I saw other women my age who were not in corporate America, who were just living a life that they loved, that they woke up passionate about. And it truly changed everything for me. I left Omega that weekend. I came into Omega being like, I don't even know who I am without Kevin. Who am I? And I left not only knowing who I was, but beginning a whole new life based on that person. So, very quickly, as I do in all things, within a year, I had quit my career and I had sold my apartment. And I had a little bit of money in order to survive for 6 months to figure it out, which I know is such a privilege. But I went off to India, as you do, of course, Eat, Pray, Love. And I studied at the Oneness University. And I came back and I was like, I want to do what I was doing for insulin for Big Pharma, but I want to do it for that woman, that the teacher at Omega, right? I want to do it for Gabby Bernstein. I want to do it for these people in the space that were just kind of popping out with personal brands in 2011. And that's what happened. So I began just going from person to person, being like, hi, I used to do this for drugs. Do you want me to look at your website and give you feedback? And everyone was like, okay, sure. So I met Gabby, and Gabby became one of my first clients. And from there, I was introduced to her whole community. And then it just kind of kept rolling and rolling and rolling. And now we are 12 years later. We are a team of 10. We work with amazing, amazing people in the space. We've branded thousands of thought leaders at this time. We do events all over the world for female visionaries. Our last one was just in Mexico. Our next one is in Tuscany, if anyone's interested, next May 2025. And I'm truly living a life that I love, just like those girls that I met that day at Omega. And it's just so amazing, the whole full circle of all of it. So that's the story from breakdown to breakthrough. One of my favorite quotes of all times is, "The barn's burnt down. Now I can see the moon." And that's truly how it felt. Like everything at that moment was burnt down. I had no idea who I was. I was so in my eating disorder, in drugs, in alcohol, in all of it, not knowing any other way. And from that place of everything being really burnt to the ground, I was able to finally see the moon and create, a whole life from there.
I think that your story is so relatable because I think a lot of us, when we are maybe in overwhelm, but we have a lot to lose, we don't really take that leap. And sometimes, unfortunately, it does take that breakdown moment to really pivot and do something that we love. So thank you for sharing your story. That was so beautiful. I'm going to just like pivot and dive right in. So, because you're talking about Gabby and then, pharma, I was thinking like, okay, so what did you see in pharma maybe that these personal brands weren't doing? And like, how do you help them stand out and be recognizable brands?
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for asking that question. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. So, when I was in pharma, and I was always working in phase 3 clinical trials. So, this was way before, not even way before, like 3 years before the brand was going to be launched on, on commercials, on the website, out into the world. So, we were 3 years prior developing the positioning. What is this insulin? Who is it for? What is it going to be seen as and known for? How is this insulin different from all other insulins? When someone sees this insulin in their doctor's office, what are they going to feel about this insulin? What does this insulin represent to them? It was so much build up strategic foundation to develop this $1 billion drug. And that I was so deeply rooted in that strategy. And I would then look at these personal brands who are just kind of coming out of the woodwork being like, here, I'm a life coach. Here, I'm a this. And in a world where it was more and more life coaches and more guides and more thought leaders, the need to differentiate and create a solid brand positioning that really, really represented, okay, who are you as a life coach? How are you different than the 1,000 other life coaches in the room? What is the unique message that you and only you, based on your story, based on your history, based on all that you've gone through and all that you know, what can you bring to the table? What are you how is this insulin different from all other insulins? It's the same exact process. And I say that I'm so grateful for the years and years and years I spent in pharma, because I was taught with huge budgets and huge resources, how to build a $1 billion brand, how to build truly a $1 billion brand. And so the fact that I'm able to take that storytelling and positioning work to the solo entrepreneur now, or to the CEO, or to build the story of them, is such an honor and a privilege. And I'm so grateful that I'm not in a cubicle doing it for insulin anymore. But it's the same exact process. Who are you? Who are you for? How are you differentiated? What are you going to be seen as and known for on stage when people listen to your podcast, when people pick up your book? Who do you represent in their life? We work with a lot of big publishing houses. So a lot of our clients are authors, just got a really big book deal, need to set up their whole personal brand to kind of get ready for that. So they come and they're like, my brand is my book. And I'm like, no, no, no. Your brand includes your book. Your brand includes this moment, but your brand needs to be big enough to hold not just where you are, but where you're going, right? So in the work that I do with clients, it's not just, oh, I'm a wellness expert that loves green juice. It's like, okay, green juice is part of the way that you work with clients. I always say, I don't brand what you do, I brand who you are, right? And then that allows you to do many, many things. And because a lot of the what you do is often not the differentiator, the who you are. is. So it's like the same exact work, truly, that I did with Novo, that I do with, a Gabby, a Marianne Williamson. Like it's the same work. It's just a different product, different brand, one that I just have more fun with these days.
I love this. I know not everyone can see us, but Lydia and I are over here like clapping, like was this? Snapping, because we're like we literally speak the
Sorority
same
snaps.
language. Yeah,
Yeah.
party, brand positioning, like you are more than just, the book, especially. We see this a lot with authors. It's like, no, like they're gonna be interviewing you, as the author, and like you need to stand for something too, and like you need to be known for something. Of course, the book is part of that, but there's more to it. So I just love this. Also, never would have thought about branding insulin. Like that must have had you to be able to think through that. Like it's a product that's not sexy. Like all of us now, we have a very similar ideal client. We work with thought leaders, experts, authors, like all of that. So it's a lot more fun, I would say. But to be able to do what you've done, and I know Lydia's done the same for products, you
Yeah.
really need to think creatively. So I love that. And I want to shift into that like whole life coach example, because this is something that we see all the time too. With
Yeah.
social media, anyone can have access to their phone and literally be, a coach, an expert, a thought leader. So,
Yeah.
what are some of the things that are most important when that life coach is differentiating themselves from another life coach? Is it story? Is it expertise? Is it process, methodology? What do you see?
So process is important if you're looking to sell a book, for sure. That is what I have learned over the last, few years. Process is important to have some sort of proprietary thing, framework, methodology, process that just makes you an easier sell if you're looking to get into publishing. That said, to build a brand, we need to hear stories. We want to hear lived experience. I always lead with vulnerability. I put myself out on the table. I invite my clients to do the same. We want to work with people that we like. We want to work with people that we relate to. We want to work with people that we feel seen or comforted or whatever that feeling is around. And so sharing yourself, especially in this industry, right? Sharing what you've gone through, sharing what you're going through now is so important. Like, I think gone are the days of guru on stage looking down at the audience saying, I've got it all figured out, follow me. But rather it's I'm in the audience with everyone looking around saying, guys, this is the way, let's go. Right. So it's a different kind of positioning of you, no longer like, I know it all, come with me. But really, I'm right there with you, right? That's really what, especially after COVID and, after all that we as a country, we as a world went through with COVID, we're emerging. The playing field was leveled on so many different ways. And so I think that, in order to create a strong brand, you have to really show yourself. You have to create a brand that's authentic to you. I always use the example when I'm speaking that, I once had someone come to me and I was on a Zoom consult call with them, and she was this like Bronx-based kick you in your ass life coach. She was like, Michelle, get off the couch, stop effing emotionally eating, enough. Like she was very much like that. And I was like, wait, you're amazing. I would hire you for my life coach. Why aren't you filling your program? Like, why aren't you getting the clients? And I go to her website, boop, 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 boop. And I open it and it's like, namaste, welcome. And I'm like, who is this? Right. And so I think that a lot of people present themselves in the costume of what they think a life coach is, or what they think a yoga teacher needs to be, or what they think a spiritual person needs to be. And then they're wondering, why aren't I getting clients? Or why aren't I filling programs? Or why aren't I getting these speaking gigs? And it all comes back to presenting yourself authentically. If you are not presenting your authentic story, if you are not presenting yourself in the way that you actually are with vulnerability and truth, even if we're not able to kind of like put it, like articulate it, there is a feeling of distrust, right? Like if I was to meet this life coach out in the world and she's like kick ass, whatever, and then I go to her website and it's so different, it's such a different feeling, or I see her on social and it's such a different feeling, that's going to immediately give me this feeling of something's off here. I don't trust. And I might not, again, be able to articulate it, but it's a feeling that I'll have. And that feeling is enough to not click on, or that feeling is enough to not say yes, or that feeling is enough to not book the consult call. So I think authenticity, and at Soul Camp, that's like what we're all about. What is the most authentic brand? What is the most authentic story? What is the most authentic message based on who you are, what you've gone through, what you're going through now, what you're here to learn, right? What you're here to teach, which is, again, the same thing most often, and how do we show up in that space in a way that, of course, is professional, and of course is not just like, hey, I'm drowning too, right? But that is relatable and accessible, and trustworthy. So I think authenticity is like ding ding ding, the number one.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot with press because a lot of our clients have come through and they haven't earned their press placement yet. And it's the same exact thing where they're like, they show up totally different in person. And then we kind of look at their branding and it looks a little bit like the namaste or something like that. So we do spend a lot of time on brand positioning at the beginning. And then we encourage them to go back to their website and their socials. Like, does it all align? Because that's your first line of defense when the
Absolutely.
media is coming and checking you out, especially if you have like a book deal or if you have all these other pieces, like you want to make sure everything is aligned. So, what would you say to a founder who is listening to this podcast and they're like, I don't know what my differentiators are. How am I authentic? I don't know. Cause sometimes what I'll see is like, we're really close to our brands and we can't see what others are seeing. So what are the questions that you would ask them to maybe like journal on or think about to bring more authenticity into their brand?
Yeah. So where I always start with everyone is like, if someone was Googling you today, what would they Google? Like, if they were Googling you to find you, right? If they were looking you up, what would they have to search? Would it be like funny life coach? Or would it be like a life coach that feels like my friend? Or would it be like someone with a kick in the, who can kick me in the ass and get me to that profit margin, whatever, right? What would they be Googling? So that's like kind of setting the lay of the land as of today. What are you seen as? What are you known as? What are you known for? And then I always take people back. So, it's not just who were you in the last 5 years, but I always take people back to tell me about your childhood. Tell me about your parents. Tell me about growing up. Who were you in seventh grade? These formative years where these core things that we learned, for me particularly, I always felt like I didn't belong, right? Like I wanted to fit in with the different groups, and like I got in with the cool groups, but like I never felt really like I belonged there. I got into with the sleepaway camp girls, but I never felt like I really belonged there. And so and that has been a theme throughout my life, starting with my childhood of I'm so different. I don't belong. I'm the weird one. Like everyone else has it figured out, and I'm on the outside. So for me, that's like from a spiritual perspective, like the lesson my soul is here to learn throughout my life. And then I look through my life, oh, wow, it has been a whole lifetime of feeling like I don't belong. Ding, ding, ding. Maybe what I'm here is to help others feel like they belong, right? So what I take people through is like really tracing, like, what are the themes of your life and like, what are you here to do? And then, of course, your business, your brand, that's one place, and the place that I most often, concentrate on. But that's one place you can bring that purpose, right? That soul's lesson, right? But you could bring it to your community, your family. It doesn't just need to be business. I happen to run a company that concentrates in business, but I take people through, what have you gone through? Tell me everything. I always say, tell me the darkness, because truly your purpose is in the mud. It's not in the light, right? Your purpose is in the shit that you go through or continue to go through. And it could be with your parents, it could be whatever, right? We all have something. And so going there, like going to the darkness is where I go. And because I know that that's where the gold is, always, always, always. I've worked with thousands of people, and so many people are like, this is what I do, and this is my vision forward. And I'm like, amazing. Tell me about seventh grade. Who were you in seventh grade? So that's really, as far as like journaling, like what have been the themes of your life? And they're big themes. It's not just like my weight, right? Which is like a big one for me, but it's like, what's underneath my weight? Like why do I keep gaining weight and losing weight and gaining weight and losing? Like, what is that? Right. So just tracing kind of like my life, starting from my childhood of like, what did I go through? Because nothing happens for no reason, right? The family that you're born into, the circumstances that you're born into, the illnesses you've gone through, the grief that you've walked through, whatever that is, it's all part of your message, right? It's not, oh, that just happened and that just happened. It's all part of. So really just helping people kind of connect the dots of like, oh, wow, that happened. And that, so to see what is the big theme that I'm here to live into. For me, it's all around like belonging and shame. For others, it's all about, like feeling worth, right? Feeling worthy for but usually it's a big theme. And then it's like, okay, so now that you know that that's your theme, not just for your business, but for your life, what you're here to do, how can we create a business out of that? Right. So that's kind of where I take people through. And that's the most important piece. Because then from there, it's like, all right, great. What's the vision forward? Okay, great. Who do you want to work with? Okay, great. What is this? Like, what do you want your life? But you have to start with what are you here on this planet to do? Like, that's the piece. And like, even if it's, I'm here to help corporate American women, not be burned out. Wonderful. Tell me how you became the person who got to the place where you were so burnt out. It's not just, oh, I was in corporate America and I was burnt out. Okay, what did you believe about yourself from seventh grade, from however old, that led you to become a person to get a job where you worked nonstop and burned yourself out? Probably worth, probably, again, big topic, right? So that's always where we start of like, what is it? What are you here to do and learn and become based on everything you've gone through and continue to go through? Because you're going to keep going through the thing until you're like, oh shit, that's my thing, right? So until you are able to be like, that's my thing, then we identify it and it's like, amazing. That's your thing. It's not something to hide in the shadows. That's what you're here to teach and heal and help others heal from, right? Like bring it out of the shadows. Don't stuff it down. Bring it to the light. That's your business. That's the brand. Like it's all here. So that's kind of like in terms of what would I journal on? What are the themes that have kept coming up that might probably look bad or dark or fucked up, right? But like are actually not. And like, what is underneath? What's the common denominator of all of that? Because typically it's a big theme and that's what you're here to help others do. And even if you're a CEO, a founder, that's what you're here to help your team do. That's what you're here to help, whatever that is. Getting in touch with that first is not just important, it's everything. It's everything. Otherwise, you're going to keep being like, am I doing it? Like, am I on the right path? It's like, once you know, oh, I'm here to do this on this planet, it doesn't matter how you do it. That can be interchanged throughout your lifetime, right? Oh, now I'm speaking. Now I'm writing a book. Now I want to start a company around this, right? It doesn't matter. But it's like having that North Star of like, I am here to heal this in myself and others. That, is what we start in. And that's what I would have people journal on.
No big deal. I hope everyone's taking notes. I feel like they're gonna listen to this episode, pause it, and then be like, okay, I need to do this when I have like a nice Friday night where I can like make myself some tea, put some essential oils on, like put some candles on, and really journal on this. But this is so important. Like, I love that you do this with your clients. I can also tell that like you get to bring your own personality into what you do. Like, it so beautifully bleeds into the work that you're doing. And then you're able to give them even a better product because like the process that you bring people through is not surface level, which I think more and more companies, want anyway. And that's what's going to help them stand out. So I love that. I want to ask you a little bit about your own organic publicity journey because I know that you've gotten like some incredible press for yourself, like Oprah. How did this happen, Michelle? How did this happen?
So seriously, freaking magic. Like my Gabby client friend says, God is my publicist. And like truly that is what it felt like. So me and Allie, again, going back to purpose, me, my business partner, Allie, both of us, and this is where we meet, have from childhood felt, something's wrong with me. I don't belong. I'm on the outside. And we went to sleepaway camp together. And sleepaway camp, we loved sleepaway camp, but we also felt not part of in sleepaway camp. It was like this juxtaposition between like, this, I love it here, but also I'm not included. I'm left out. No one wants to be my buddy in the lake, right? Like these really hard feelings growing up. And so when Allie and I came together and all of our clients were these life coaches and teachers with big platforms, we were like, what if we brought, and this is back in 2013, we're like, what if we brought all of our clients who have like, hundreds of thousands of followers, what if we brought all of our clients to Camp Tawanda, the sleepaway camp we went to growing up? And instead of soccer, tennis, basketball, we had like Kundalini yoga, burn your fear in the fire, miracle talk, whatever it is, right? What if we put on sleepaway camp, but for adults? And instead of the typical, soccer, archery, it was all of our spiritual clients. And so that's what we did back in 2014. That was the first year. We did not think that this was going to be a business. We'd never even heard of this. Our website was soulcamp2014.com. That shows you kind of like where we thought it was like a one-off event, soulcamp2014.com. And we sent an email out to our clients in our community being like, hey, would you want to come teach at sleepaway camp for adults? And like, everyone said yes. It was like, we were like, we can't pay you. We'll have tie-dye shirts for you. It'll be super fun. It'll be like going back to camp. We can't pay anything. We don't even have any, photos or videos of what this looks like. And everyone said yes. And it was then, I reached out cold email, info@huffingtonpost.com. And I was like, hey, back then they had this thing called GPS for the Soul. I was like, hey, you have this thing called GPS for the Soul. We're starting Soul Camp. Do you want to be our media sponsor? Yes, they did. Again, info@huffingtonpost.com. Same with info@soulpancake.com. We have the word soul in our name too. Soul Camp, Soul Pancake. They were like, Rainn Wilson, who's the founder of Soul Pancake, loves this idea. He wants to speak at Soul Camp. It was like we were in this vortex, we call it the energy of Soul Camp, that it was just so meant to take off that everyone back then in 2013, and again, we're in a really different time now, but back in 2013, it was just yes, 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 yes. And the first time we put on Soul Camp, 150 people came. And we were like, oh shit, this is not just this one-off event. This is the thing. So from there, we had photos and we had video and we had all these things. And we were one of the first adult sleepaway camps for the soul, right? Adult sleepaway camps. And we were the only spiritual wellness one. So once one, yoga journal picked us up and did a spread on us, then from there, just that one hit, Weight Watchers sent, their people to Soul Camp, and they did a whole spread on the Weight Watchers magazine. Then Oprah, it was like, boop, 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 boop. I'll never forget. It would be like every day. Now we're on BuzzFeed. Now we're on this. And it was like, people were sending it to us like, you guys are here. You guys are here. And it was because it was an innovative idea. That was the reason why. Like back then, me and Allie, it wasn't like the founder's story. It was the idea of an adult sleepaway camp that was so out of the box. And that's why I think we got so much media back then. And then we bought, and again, this is like a lot of this was luck. We bought when .coms, so like .soul, .xyz, anything other than .coms. Once those were launched, we bought soul.camp. And a company that was in charge of .com, like literally partnered with the government to get people to buy .coms because the .coms were running out, put us everywhere. So because they were highlighting our company, but what they were really highlighting for them was the soul.camp, right? So they got us and it was free. They were like, Inc. magazine, Forbes magazine, fortune.com, again, showing, hey, there's this whole new .com movement. Look at this company that's doing it. So literally suddenly we're in Inc. magazine, Soul Camp, an overnight success. Meanwhile, we're literally like Airbnb being our apartment to pay the bills. But like, it was like Soul Camp, an overnight success. Me and Allie were like, oh my God, are we gonna like be able to afford like rent next month? But we got all of these media hits and it was like so crazy and it was organic and one led to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And a lot had to do with the idea, but then we kept building on it. Then it was like, all right, well, the idea was year 1 and 2. We got all that press year 1 and 2. Now let's come out with me and Allie and me and Allie's story. And we're best friends from camp. And we, our whole thing is about how to make friends as an adult. From there, it was like, oh, wow, making friends as an adult, whole new topic, whole new theme. We brought into this place, IIN, Institute for Integrated Nutrition, to their global conference. We spoke on Lincoln Center, in front of 7,000 people on how to make friends as an adult. We're still in their modules. It was like, there are so many things off of Soul Camp, not just like, oh, it wasn't even about the influencers that we had there. And we had Sean Korn teaching yoga, MC Yogi. We did a concert with, it was like, we were crazy. Literally, we were, MC Yogi came and he was like, so what's the light situation? And we were like, the light situation? What do you mean the light? We had no idea that we were like putting on a full concert, literally for 100 people. And he was like, wow, this is very intimate, more intimate than I usually do. We made some wild mistakes along the way. And as far as media moving forward, we're going to come out with those mistakes, big mistakes, and start talking about them. That will be a whole other way to get media for us. But really it was the idea. And then it was the founder story. And we thought it was going to be the influencers. We thought it was going to be, look at all the influencers we have. Nope. That was not what got any media. It was the idea, and it was these two camp friends that created this from a space of wanting to help people make friends as an adult. So yeah, it was really our story, and then the innovative, product that we had created. And that was just timing. Now there are like 1 million adult sleepaway camps. Like now it's a thing. But back then it was not a thing. And it was like, what is this? This is crazy. And now it's just like, oh yeah, of course, an adult sleepaway camp. So if we had launched now, we wouldn't have gotten any of that press, because it's much more commonplace now.
Yeah, it's so funny because I think that I think that the reason, I mean, there's many reasons why this like really took off when you started, but I think the biggest one was you were just so in your authenticity that you weren't afraid to take risks. And because of that, your innovation shined through. Your differentiator was so freaking clear. So for anybody listening, authenticity is key. And we always say this, but like if you are as authentic as possible, or you allow your brand to be that way, you end up creating your own niche. And these are the types of things that happen. Like opportunities just come in. So I'm not surprised that you had all of this amazing success because you were just following what you wanted and your bliss, and then everything came after it. So can you tell me like what kind of happened after you started getting all of this press? Because something that we talk a lot about is buzz. Like you're creating buzz, your brand awareness, you're at top of mind when the media starts picking you up. So was there anything that came after that? Maybe like some celebrity clients reached out, or maybe like other opportunities that you didn't think about, or problems that you solved to create new offers, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, that happened, and it didn't come to fruition, but Buna Murray, which is a production company, reached out to us on behalf of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. And me and Allie are obsessed with reality TV. Like we are like Bravo, like you name. I just like binged 2 straight seasons of Summer House. We like love reality television. And when they reached out, it was the craziest thing and then we had a series of meetings and we kept talking, like it was basically putting on a soul camp specific for the cast, which is the girls, the sisters. And it was Courtney's idea because Courtney knows soul camp. We were dying. It was like, oh, Courtney knows soul camp. Oh, we were freaking out. It never happened because then like Tristan cheated on Chloe and the whole like the production
You
timeline
were
shift.
like in the drama with them, low key.
No, it was the craziest thing. We were like, it's not going to happen. Something's going on. Meanwhile, we're like on page 6 being like, oh, great. Now we're not doing soul camp.
Yeah, you're like, God damn it, Tristan.
Yeah, but that was one of the biggest things when that happened. Then a lot of production companies started reaching out to film soul camp, to do a reality show based on soul camp. And there were 2 times that we really, really thought about it really, really hard.
Hmm,
Thing with soul camp is that it was so special and so sacred. And like
right.
the things that were going on in the workshops were not like funny. Like it was deep healing, inner child stuff, past life regression. Like it wasn't, we were too scared. And I think it was the right decision for sure, that like they would make like a mockery of like what we were doing. And we didn't want to put our participants through that, or us as a
Yeah.
brand. So we said no, but yeah, that's what started happening. So Keeping Up reached out, then a few other production companies reached out. We built our list, which isn't huge, but to 40,000, followers, which was great, like because of so much of the press. we got more people behind the scenes of Soul Camp was always our agency going on. And it was the same demographic, people who wanted to live their purpose, people who wanted to heal and help others do the same. And so it was like, oh, well, you go to Soul Camp, you have this incredible experience, you recognize what you're here to do and have this whole new lease on life. Come build your brand now. Let's do it. Right. So it really helped the agency. So yeah, keeping up is truly like the opportunity that came. We were brought into Google's incubator. That was another really cool thing that happened. And they like provided like marketing services for us basically. Then they did it for a few like cool companies. Soul Camp was one of them. Iron Man was one of them. And so that was really cool too. We like felt really cool, even though it like did nothing for our bottom line, but we like felt cool. But yeah, keep it as like a reality TV person, like keeping up forever will be like the craziest thing, because it was just like we were on these conversations like talking about the cast, and we were like, we know about the cast. Like we know everything. So that, but definitely building the list and building our agency up to where it is today for sure is takeaways as well.
This has nothing to do with anything, but I think you'll love it. So, I did theater with Kris Jenner's personal assistant, and we were like good friends. And throughout high school and college, and then we kind of like lost touch because he moved to California. And one day I'm watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and I was like, "Uh, is that Matt Ryan?" And then I texted him and I was like, Matt, are you like Kris Jenner's personal assistant? He's like, yeah. I'm like, what?
Wild. See, it all
Such a
comes back
small
to the
world.
Kardashians.
It all comes back to the Kardashians. This is such a wild conversation. I love that you've just had so many opportunities by following your bliss and just being so authentic. And Bridget and I were just talking on the side. We do that because we're like, hey, what are
Yeah.
you asking next?
Yeah.
And she was like, wow, like she can truly position anything because of your background. And that's such a gift that you have. It really is a gift that you're like naturally positioning without even trying.
Yeah. I know.
I'm sure you hear this all the time.
Yeah, I hear this all the time. Allie, my business partner, always tells people Michelle sees in taglines. Like
Mm,
that's how I see the world. I'm so grateful. And like people who are miserable in corporate America, I'm like, what are you learning now?
yeah.
Like, what are you taking? Because in the future that you'll look back, you could look back on this and being like, oh my God, thank God for my miserable corporate experience, because now I know how to do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, for sure. Soul Camp was a product that at the end of the day that we created and positioned and launched, and it was amazing because we were obsessed with it. And this is what I say to my clients when they're launching their own brands and when they're launching their own courses and things. Talk about it like it's the best freaking party in town. I think I said this, at the speaking engagement too. People want to be part of something that feels exciting and fun. And so me and Allie were like, so like we could not believe that we were putting on camp. Like we loved camp. And so the fact that we were putting on camp all over the country, New York, California, Chicago, it was like we're living our dream. So like everywhere we went, it's all we talked about. And like all of our friends were part of it because all of our friends like were entrepreneurs in the spiritual wellness space. And so it became this like just huge exciting thing that everyone wanted to be part of. And that came from the genuine joy and excitement, right? And that went into everything. I say this example a lot. Like when Allie and I used to write newsletters, and we would have like Soul Camp newsletters go out every week. And listen, Soul Camp was also a business. So, and we didn't know how to run it. Like that was the other thing. Like we knew how to run an agency. We did not know how to run a humongous production company basically of these events. So, we were like, we had hard decisions a lot to make and figuring it out. And so there was a lot of stress there too. And Allie would always say, like when we were writing our newsletter and we were like stressed about something, we both lived on the Upper West Side in New York City at the time. And she would always be like, let's shut the computer. Let's go to Central Park. Let's change our energy because we can't put out a newsletter from this like space of stress, like we have to get back into our joy and the excitement and the, oh my God, can you believe that we're doing that? Because people feel that. People feel that. And that's how I feel in my life every day. I'm like, can you believe that I get to work with these people? Like, can you believe that the people whose like books are on my shelf are my clients and my friends? Like, it's so crazy to me still. And I'm so grateful for all of the darkness, not just being in corporate America that like wasn't the right fit, but like everything I went through, because now I'm like, oh my God, I like wake up and I don't throw up every day. How amazing. Like I live my life and I'm not just like popping Adderall all the time. Life is amazing. Like it is, I'm so grateful for all of it because it gives me this truly gratitude and joy every day that I don't think that I would have otherwise.
And your joy is infectious, right? Like I'm a pretty like joyful, like excited, excitable person. And like, when we're around others, we just like buzz even more. So now I'm gonna be buzzing all day, Michelle. Thank you.
Oh my
Thank
gosh.
you. Thank
Well,
you.
and I love that you said Buzz because I named my youngest son who ran in crazy, Jordy B, B-E-E. And we call him the bee. Bees are so important. And
Yeah.
Soul Camp, this is the last thing I'll say about Soul Camp. When Allie and I created Soul Camp, our vision, I don't know if you'll remember this song, but it was No Rain. And there was a music video.
Do 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 do.
Yep.
Do 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 do
And there
do
is a
do do
music
do.
video of a little girl in a bee costume, and a little chubby girl. And me and Allie were that little chubby girl in the bee costume, and she was going around, and everyone was like, "Weirdo! Why are you in that? Like, why are you a bee?" Like it was, and and you saw her throughout the music video, like go into stores, and people were like, "What are you? What are you?" And then at the end of the music video, there's this gate that open and she runs in and it's all these other people in bee costumes. And it's like she found her bees. And so that is what like our vision of Soul Camp was like, it's for the misfits. It's for the people who like talk about stuff that like their family might not talk about and they feel like weird. Come find your bees. So I love that you're buzzing.
I love that. Yeah. And like Bridget B, they call you that kind of stuff. So I love it. I'm about to cry because that was such a cute analogy. I need to watch the music video because I love that song too.
Yeah.
As we start to close it out, like what's next for you? What's exciting? What feels most alive for you, the company, whatever?
So the company is rocking and rolling. We're really, really grateful where we're at. We're working with some, clients that are not necessarily what we're used to. So it's a stretch, not just personal brands, much bigger brands who are looking to innovate and pivot. And so we're really excited about that. I will say, because the book announcement will be out by then, but I just sold my book, my first book, and it's all about shame. I talk a lot about the darkness. I talk a lot about the mud. I talk a lot about how, what you're looking for is in what you're hiding. And so that's what the book's going to be all about. It's called Not Awakened. It will be out in early 2026. Feels like a long way away, but I know it's not. And I'm in conversation to do my first TED Talk in California, TEDx talk, not TED Talk, TEDx. And so it just feels like, and I believe in energy and I believe in flow. And I turned 40 and I like declared, I was like, this is going to be the best decade ever. Like I am so excited. I love turning older. Like my 20s were the worst time of my life. Like, so I'm like so grateful to be like in my 30s and now in my 40s. And so I just feel like the opportunities are going to be crazy in the next few years, starting with the book, starting with the talk, but more and more and more. Like I have the capacity now for it all. So I'm grateful for all that's to come.
We are so excited to see all things Michelle. I feel like 40 is the new 20, and it's just like you get to live your life and not give a flying F, and it's just the best. So I'm looking forward to 42. I mean, I'm not 40 yet, but I'm looking forward to that decade.
Yeah.
The best. Thank you so much, Michelle, for sharing your infectious energy and your magic and your story today. And thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of Visibility Era, the podcast.